Hello everyone, GoldenNova here, and welcome to my first patron-sponsored episode. That's right, for those of you who don't know, as part of my new push to make this channel self-sustaining, there's a tier of my Patreon where I provide 4 choices, and you have the chance to vote on which one I cover that month. If you're interested in casting your ballot, stick around until the end of the video, and you can see what choice I have lined up for you next month. For this poll, Unchained won by an overwhelming margin, the deck that specializes in widespread destruction of any card that hits the field, centered around the story of an imprisoned Taoist master. The story here is actually surprisingly well documented, at least for their initial release. The practitioner of the Taoist arts was sealed away by those who feared their power, and over the countless years of being confined to what looks like a very uncomfortable metal coffin, their anger poisoned their soul with evil, and as the seals keeping them bound loosened ever so slightly, their magic power leaked out and became a pair of duplicates that would work to free their master. As part of this goal, these duplicates would summon a Shikigami, a kind of conjured spirit that belongs to their original master, but had become twisted and wrathful to reflect the soul of the one who controlled them. However, this would end up being the twins' undoing, as they were absorbed into the abomination to increase its power. After that, well, we don't have anything solid. V-Jump, the publication that released info for Dogmatica when it first came out, doesn't really expound on the Unchained story as more cards were released. Personally, I think it's safe to say that Abominable Unchained Soul is the master, while Sarama is kind of a condensed form of Unchained Abomination, still maintaining the energy and power of the original twins, but until we get more confirmation, these are just good guesses at best. Something I ran into while I was researching, Shikigami are widely known to be used by practitioners of the art of Onmyodo, the Onmyoji, a profession that might sound familiar to my fellow Shaman King fans. And one of the influences on Onmyodo? Taoism. It doesn't have any relevance to the rest of the video, I just thought it was cool. But cultural discoveries aside, let's examine the links of this particular chain, determine how best we can string up the competition, then find some additions that'll really make this deck blow up. It's time to get a better understanding of Unchained. But before we continue, a quick reminder to please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed my content so far. We're bumping up the goal to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, but I'm gonna keep what video I want to do for that particular milestone under my hat for just a bit longer. We've also got our Discord, where we've got a very passionate tokusatsu channel. I don't even know anything about Kamen Rider and all that, but a lot of people on the server ran with it, and it's honestly kind of incredible. And if you really like what I do here, please consider joining my YouTube membership or Patreon, which you can find in the description, so you can get your name in the credits, as well as help determine future explained videos that I make, like this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and now, back to the video. So what's the deal with Unchained? Well, they're a series of fiend monsters spanning a few attributes, and much like the god of partying himself, Andrew WK, you destroy so you can build up your resources so you can destroy some more. Now, in most themes, I like to talk about the monsters first, but here I think it's better to begin with the spells and traps, because they all share a very important effect. If this set card is destroyed by a card effect, you can special summon one Unchained monster from your deck. This is one of the main ways you're going to get your deck going. If you don't want to use any of these cards' activated effects, you can just destroy them with your own self-destruction effects to pull your monsters out of the deck. First is Abominable Chamber of the Unchained, a normal trap that special summons an Unchained monster from your hand or grave. This is super useful, as we've got some pretty high level monsters that this can get out of our hand, and is otherwise just a great way to get your monsters back into play. My only issue here is that the name is very misleading. It's not a Chamber of the Unchained, the subject of the art is very much chained. Escape of the Unchained is another normal trap that has you targeting one Unchained monster you control and any other card on the field and destroying both. It's effectively a scrap dragon, with the added benefit that every Unchained you feed to this card is going to get you something when it blows up, so it's actually more cost effective than it might seem. It's also the first close-up we get of the twins, and I've gotta say the yandere energy here is palpable. Wailing of the Unchained Souls is a continuous spell that triggers when you link summon an Unchained Link monster, forcing you to target a card on the field and destroy it. Thankfully, you have a ton of good options of your own to choose from, so even if your opponent's field is bare, you can still make great use out of it. And in combination with Unchained Soul of Rage, who we'll get into soon, you can even trigger this on your opponent's turn to really wail on them. Abomination's Prison is a normal spell that adds any Unchained card from your deck to your hand. Yeah, any card. So in addition to all the main deck monsters we're about to cover, this also grabs all the spells and traps we've already talked about. So you've got a card slot that's insanely flexible to begin with, and if for some reason every other on-theme card doesn't appeal to you, then it's another target for your self-destruction effects to get more value. And because it's the card that shows the Onmyoji's personal Shikigami being released onto the world, we can finally answer the Baha Men's greatest question. The twins. It was the twins that let the dog out. Alright, let's move on to the main deck monsters. The first three are the Unchained twins, and if your brain is twisting over the fact that there are 3 twins, just refer to my previous theory that Sarama is a fusion of Unchained Soul, Aruha, and Rakeya. It's the only way this makes sense. But aside from some strange naming conventions, they're all level 3, have 1500 attack and defense, and share the same effect. If they're destroyed by a battle or card effect except their own, you can special summon an Unchained monster from your hand or deck, except another copy of themselves. So combined with Abominable Chamber, you have easy access to all your monsters just about all the time. Unchained Twins Aruha is a fire monster, and while they're in your hand, you can target and destroy a card you control to special summon them from your hand, but you're locked into only special summoning fiend monsters for the rest of the turn. This makes for a strong opener with any of your spells and traps, as you can just set them, blow them up with Aruha, then summon out some assistants, perhaps another monster that can blow up Aruha to summon out another buddy. See, taking advantage of our wanton thirst for annihilation is even better with a friend. Unchained Twins Rakeya is a water monster, and as a quick effect, you can target a card you control and destroy it, but you're locked into fiend-only special summons for the rest of the turn, much like Aruha. You don't get any other benefit out of the effect, so it's purely used to enable your other cards with on-destruction effects, but since it's a quick effect, it's much more useful to keep on the field long-term than Aruha. Just don't leave them alone for too long. If they go a long time without their twin, they start feeling a little blue. Unchained Twin Sarama is a dark monster, and they can target an unchained card in your grave, set it to your field, then destroy a card you control. And bonus, it does not lock you into any kind of summon. Sarama is an excellent way to summon monsters out of your deck, and to recycle your spells and traps. Setting then blowing up any previously covered card will net you a monster from your deck, or you can blow up a different card to keep what you set, in case you need an escape for some removal later on, or need to search a card with Prism. Sarama goes to show that it's not always bad to be set in your ways. Now we have a couple of level 8 Unchained monsters. Abominable Unchained Soul is a dark monster with 3000 attack and 1500 defense, and you can only special summon one of them, or multiple at the same time, per turn. If any number of cards you control are destroyed, you can special summon them from your hand, and if they are special summoned, you can discard a card to destroy a card on the field. But it's not just a huge body with removal, it's also resilient. Once per turn during the end phase, if Abominable Unchained Soul is in the grave because it was destroyed while on the field that turn, you can special summon them, but they're put on the bottom of the deck when they leave the field. Goodness gracious, that's a lot of text, but I guess that's how you know it's a boss monster. It's pretty silly how easy it is to summon what amounts to a Blue Eyes with a burst stream of destruction that floats, so while it's not very fancy, if anyone can pull off Beerus's big Hakai energy, it's certainly this handsome devil. Unchained Soul of Disaster is a dark monster with 0 attack and 3000 defense, but they gain 300 attack for each unchained card in your grave, and thankfully, they don't have to be differently named. They can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, and after the effect resolves, immediately link summon a Dark Link monster using only Disaster and the targeted monster as material. Also, if they're destroyed while on the field, you can target an Unchained monster in your grave except a copy of itself, and special summon it. This is one of those monsters that's a huge threat no matter what stage of the game you're in. Summon them out early as a defensive wall that floats if destroyed, or bring them out against an established board as a way to scoop up just about any monster your opponent controls that can be targeted. Add this one to the list, folks, because we've got another extremely good Yu-Gi-Oh! Doggo right here. And thankfully, we have some excellent Link monsters to pair with them. Unchained Soul of Rage is a Dark Link 2 monster with 1800 attack, requiring 2 monsters, including an Unchained Soul monster. Its effect is remarkably similar to Disaster, except it's now a quick effect you can use during your opponent's main phase, but you can only target special summoned monsters. Also, if they're destroyed on the field, you can target a fiend in your grave except a copy of itself, and add it to your hand. So yeah, use Disaster to link off one of your opponent's monsters into Rage, and now you have a way to do the same thing on their turn as Interruption. Soul of Rage is right, because this is just the right kind of effect to get the salt going. But that's not the only option you have, because there's also Unchained Soul of Anguish, a Dark Link 3 monster with 2400 attack, requiring 2 or more monsters, including an Unchained Soul monster. And it's not stopping the use your opponent's monsters as material train, because its effect is the same as our first dog, Soul of Disaster, losing the ability to activate at quick effect speed, but can now target anything. but it does retain Soul of Rage's effect to add back a fiend from your grave if it's destroyed on the field. Soul of Rage is technically the better card, but it's nice that they give you more options to allow your Unchained Souls to scoop up even more of your opponent's cards. It's certainly a quick way to get your opponent to start seeing red. Our last card is Arcanine's final form, and it sure is a doozy. Unchained Abomination is a Dark Link 4 monster with 3000 attack, requiring 2 or more monsters, including a Link monster. This creature is a hurricane of destruction, and can destroy a card on the field as a trigger effect off of 3 different conditions, each of which you can trip once per turn. First is during either player's end phase, so you'll get to use it at least once each turn. The second is when another monster is destroyed by battle, and the third is when any number of cards are destroyed by a card effect, except for abominations, and except during the damage step. Yeah, we are not being subtle with this one. This card was meant for breaking boards, and it does so with aplomb. It demands an answer, lest your setup be picked apart piece by piece, and the horrifying part is that, since its material are pretty generic, it could show up in just about any matchup, so you have to be careful. It's a sensation that's sweeping the abomination. So that's all the Unchained cards, but what do we do with them? Well, despite being based on one of the most aggro effects ever printed, I would argue that Unchained should be played as a control deck. No bombastic OTKs, no 20-minute combos, we just want to set up a steady stream of destruction effects to pick off anything our opponent commits to the board. And if it takes us a couple of turns to close things out with our 3000 attack beatsticks, then so be it. But what can we play to help them out? Well, we might want to consider what else we can summon off of our Unchained Souls effects. We can use it to make any Dark Link monster, so including the ones from our own archetype, we're currently sitting on 101 that we can choose from. But since we're using a minimum of 2 material, we have to cut out the Link 1s, which leaves us with 91. And there are some absolutely outstanding choices here, but we're probably under the limitations set by one of our twins. So by cutting out all of the non-fiends as well as ones that can't use Unchained Souls in any capacity, and we're left with 6. 3 if we don't count our own in-house monsters. Baba Barber is cute, but is definitely a build-around that doesn't have any synergy with our theme. Beat Cop of the Underworld is a nifty option against opposing dark decks, and can even give a protective counter to Unchained Abomination, who's not only going to fetch a lot of removal, but also doesn't have their own on-destruction effect, so giving them an extra layer of security is pretty nice. And Nightmare Unicorn can be exceedingly brutal when combined with Soul of Rage, linking into it on your opponent's turn, effectively pulling off the same kind of shenanigans as IP Masquerena. As for themes we can combine with them, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Live Twin Unchained. If you can manage to get your Live Twins onto the board before your Unchained Twins lock you into fiends, then you can access the rest of your Thieving Attention Seekers to set up an advantage loop that syncs up pretty nicely with your Spirits of Destruction. The Evil Twins make excellent link material for Unchained Abomination, and Lila's on summon effect can trigger one of the Hazard Doge's effects. And if you want to be extra spicy, you can play the combined forces of Evil Twins Kiss-a-Kill and Lila, narrowing your opponent's field to only 2 cards, making it easy cleanup for your Unchained cards. Also, you get to call the deck Twins Turbo. How can you pass that up? Another control-oriented deck we can pair them with is True Draco. Wailing is a continuous spell after all, so we've got our own tribute fodder we can add to the team. And even if we're under the Twins Fiend restriction, there's nothing stopping us from normal summoning non-fiends after all. On top of being able to blow up the True Draco spells and traps to trigger their effects, we also don't have a field spell, so we don't have to worry about conflicting with Dragonic Diagram, which can, say it with me folks, destroy more of our cards. Man, Yu-Gi-Oh! Really is a game for masochists. There is always the option to play them by themselves, supplemented by a robust trap lineup. Distant Coder has made a name for himself as their premier pilot, and it's hard to argue with the results. Chamber and Escape are both valid targets for Trap Trick, which means you can pair them with ridiculously powerful cards like Torrential Tribute, Ice Dragon's Prison, and Artifact Sanctum, providing just the kind of control effects you need to take over the game. As for a silly tech pick, I think Kaijus have some very fun synergy here. Normally it's link spam decks like World Chalice that are known for using them, but since all of our cards insist on being on the field when destroyed, then Kyoto Waterfront is going to rack up counters like you wouldn't believe. And let's face it, some threats of this format just don't line up very well with Unchained. Eldritch is immune to effect destruction half the time, Dragoons can't be targeted, and Zeus has removal that bypasses your entire shtick. But polymorph them into a kaiju and they become much easier threats to deal with. There's even a Fiend Kaiju that we can use if we're under the Twins restriction. Combine that with giving you access to some honest-to-goodness negation and even more destruction, and you'll be turning the field into an old-school Toho movie in no time. And that's all I've got to say about Unchained. It's got an unbelievable amount of removal and resource management, and to the untrained eye, this unassuming theme may seem underpowered, but you would do best not to underestimate this deck, lest it be your undoing. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Do you think that Unchained are totally off the chain, or do we have to put all this hype on a leash? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video around. It really does a lot to help me out. I'd also like to take some time to thank my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander, Jay Eerieboy, as well as Nebula Navigators Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dallas Modest, and the Fresh Prince of Conair, our Cosmic Crusaders Chaz Ghost, Colin Todd, Panda PLS, and Legendary Raven, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to join their ranks, please consider becoming a Starlight Explorer by using the join button or supporting me on Patreon for a variety of perks, including getting to cast your ballot for next month's patron video. Back me at $10 or more and you can choose between Dual Avatar, Weather Painters, Nephthys, and Unchained's replacement, Penguins. And if you want to see another video that's all about twins getting up to massive amounts of mischief, check out this video I did explaining the escapades of the live evil twins. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.